The shadow of the cross has never been longer, nor has it ever dripped with so much blood. In the year 1187, the Kingdom of Jerusalem is not just a holy site, it is a ticking time bomb waiting for a spark. The leper king, Baldwin IV, is dead, and with his passing, the thin veil of stability has evaporated. Beneath the blistering sun of the Levant, a new power is rising, a shadow that moves with the speed of a desert wind and the weight of 1,000 years of history. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, is no longer content to wait at the gates. He is coming for the holy city, and the men standing in his way are fools, cowards, and traitors. The tragedy begins with King Daidalusignan, a man whose name is synonymous with incompetence. Surrounded by a court of sycophants and warmongers, Guy leads the Christian army away from the life-giving springs of the coast and into the airless, suffocating heat of the Horns of Hattin. It is a death trap. Saladin does not even need to charge, he simply sets the dry grass on fire, letting the smoke and the thirst do the work. By the time the sun sets, the true cross is in the hands of the infidels, and the chivalry of Europe is either dead or in chains. Jerusalem falls shortly after, but Saladin is a different kind of conqueror. He does not massacre the inhabitants, he replaces the cross with the crescent and waits for the world to react. When the news reaches Rome, the shock is so profound that Pope Urban III reportedly dies of a broken heart that very night. The Christian world is paralyzed by a singular, terrifying realization: the heart of their faith has been ripped out. A new call for a crusade echoes through the cold cathedrals of Europe, but this will not be like the ones before. This is the Third Crusade, the Crusade of Kings. Three titans prepare to march: the aging Emperor Frederick Barbarossa of Germany, the calculating King Philip II of France, and the man who would become a legend, Richard I of England, known to history as the Lionheart. But Barbarossa never makes it to the sand. He drowns in a shallow river in Anatolia, leaving his massive army to dissolve into the wind. Now, the fate of the West rests on two men who despise each other. Philip of France is a master of the long game, a politician who fights with whispers and gold. Richard of England is a force of nature, standing over 6 feet tall, a warrior king who breathes for the clash of steel. They were once allies, even friends who shared a bed as a symbol of unity, but the crown of England and the lands of France are a bitter inheritance that turns brothers into monsters. The tension between them boils over before they even reach the Holy Land. Richard is a star that shines too bright for Philip's comfort. On the way, Richard diverts his fleet to conquer Sicily and then Cyprus, showing a ruthless efficiency that terrifies the local lords. In Cyprus, he captures the island in a matter of days, mocking the Byzantine deserters who tried to stand in his way. He marries Berengaria of Navarre on the island, a move that is a direct insult to Philip. Richard was supposed to marry Philip's sister, Alice, but rumors whispered that the girl had been seduced by Richard's own father. Richard refuses to touch what he considers soiled goods, choosing instead a fresh alliance and a new queen. The bridge between France and England is burnt to ashes before the first siege begins. They arrive at Acre, a city that has been under siege by the remnants of the Crusader army for 2 long years. The camp is a cesspool of disease, starvation, and desperation. Philip arrives first but can do nothing but stare at the walls. Then, the Lionheart sails appear on the horizon. Richard does not wait for a council of war. He brings massive catapults, God's own sling, and begins a relentless bombardment that shatters the stone and the morale of the defenders. Within 2 months, Acre falls. The victory should be a moment of triumph, but it turns into a nightmare of ego. Richard tears down the banner of the Duke of Austria from the walls, claiming only kings have the right to fly their colors. He treats Philip like a subordinate, a mere vassal in the shadow of the Lionheart's glory. Sick with dysentery and boiling with rage, Philip declares he is going home, leaving Richard alone to face the full might of Saladin. Now the stage is set for the greatest rivalry in the history of warfare. On one side, Saladin, the wise, patient sultan who knows the desert like his own soul. On the other, Richard, the invincible crusader who trusts only in his sword and his God. But Richard's legend is stained with a dark pragmatism. To move south toward Jerusalem, he needs to clear his rear. He has 2,700 Muslim prisoners from Acre, and Saladin is stalling on the ransom payments. Richard does not have the food to feed them or the men to guard them. In a cold, calculated act of brutality that would haunt his legacy, Richard leads the prisoners out into the plain and executes every single one of them in full view of Saladin's outposts. It is a message: I am not here to negotiate. I am here to win. The march to Arsuf is a gauntlet of fire. For miles, Saladin's horse archers harass the Crusader column, raining arrows down on men clad in heavy mail. The heat is an enemy as deadly as the Saracens. Richard maintains an iron discipline, forbidding his knights from breaking formation. He waits, sensing the rhythm of the battle, waiting for the moment when Saladin's forces commit too much. When the moment comes, the heavy cavalry of the West is unleashed like a tidal wave. It is a slaughter. Saladin, who had never lost a major pitched battle, is forced to flee. He watches from a distance, stunned by the ferocity of this lion from the north. Richard moves to Jaffa, the gateway to Jerusalem. He is so close he can see the limestone walls of the holy city shimmering in the distance. But here, the warrior meets the strategist. Richard looks at his maps and his dwindling supplies. He realizes that even if he takes Jerusalem, he cannot hold it. The moment his army sails back to Europe, Saladin will swallow the city whole. He stands before the walls twice, and twice he turns back, covering his face with his cloak so he does not have to see the city he cannot save. It is the ultimate agony for a man who defined himself by conquest. While Richard is struggling in the sand, a different kind of war is being waged in his home.
Act quickly. The council
his brother, John,
everything.
encouraged by Philip of France, is systematically dismantling Richard's kingdom. They spread rumors that Richard has gone mad, that he has betrayed the cause. They want him dead, or worse, forgotten. Richard realizes that his crown is slipping away. He has no choice but to talk to the man he has spent years trying to kill. The negotiations between Richard and Saladin are a masterclass in mutual respect. Saladin, hearing that Richard is sick with fever, sends him baskets of fruit and mountain ice. When Richard's force is killed in battle, Saladin sends him 2 magnificent Arabian stallions, saying a king should not fight on foot. They are enemies, but they are the only 2 men in the world who truly understand each other. They sign a truce, the Christians keep the coast, the Muslims keep Jerusalem, but the city is open to pilgrims of all faiths. The Third Crusade ends not with a bang, but with a handshake over a sea of graves. Richard's journey home is a thriller in its own right. Knowing that Philip and the Duke of Austria are hunting him, he disguises himself as a lowly merchant, traveling through the heart of Europe with only a handful of loyal knights. But you cannot hide a lion. In a tavern near Vienna, a servant recognizes the royal ring on his finger, or perhaps his commanding presence that no rags could conceal. Richard is captured by Leopold of Austria, the man whose flag he insulted at Acre. He is sold to the Holy Roman Emperor and thrown into a dungeon. The ransom demanded for his release is astronomical, 150,000 marks of silver, a sum that represents 2 years of the entire tax revenue of England. His brother John wants him to stay in the dark forever, but their mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, is the most formidable woman in Europe. At 70 years old, she travels across the continent, squeezing every penny from the nobles and the church, even selling the gold vessels from the altars to bring her favorite son home. Richard returns to England a shadow of the man who left, but his spirit is unbroken. He spends his final years reclaiming the lands Philip stole from him, fighting with a desperation that suggests he knows his time is short. The end comes not on a glorious battlefield, but in a minor skirmish over a chest of gold rumored to be hidden in a castle in Cales. As he walks around the castle walls without his armor, a young boy with a crossbow takes a shot. The bolt hits Richard in the shoulder. It is a minor wound, but in the filth of the medieval camp, it turns gangrenous. As the Lionheart lies dying, he demands the boy who shot him be brought to his bedside. The boy is terrified, expecting to be flayed alive. Instead, Richard looks at him with the eyes of a man who has seen too much blood.
I know I've been weak.
He asks the boy why he did it.
I refuse to stand
The
by
boy
while
replies
others
that
fight
Richard
for us.
had killed his father and his
going.
brothers. Richard sighs, forgives the boy, and orders that he be given 100 shillings and set free. It is the final act of a king who had spent his life as a monster of war, trying to find a moment of grace. Richard I died in the arms of his mother, leaving a kingdom in debt and a legend that would tower over the centuries. He was a man of his time, brutal, arrogant, and obsessed with glory, but he was also the only man who could look Saladin in the eye and make him blink. The Third Crusade didn't save Jerusalem, but it created a myth of chivalry that still haunts the ruins of the Holy Land. In the end, the Lion and the Sultan both realized the same bitter truth, that the sand of the desert cares nothing for the blood of kings, and that the only thing more permanent than war is the silence that follows it.